the games don't really get much easier for Birmingham as it's 3 defeats on the spin. And next up, it's second place Ipswich Town, and no better to speak about Ipswich Town than Benjamin Bloom of the Blue Monday podcast. How are you, Benjamin?
I'm good. I'm all the better, Sam, because I didn't realise we'd met. And we met, didn't we, at the Birmingham Millwall game earlier in the season. I was covering that. But without getting all snotty about it, lots of people come and say hello to me at games. And I didn't realise it was you. So I'm very, very happy to be speaking to you. And as you've just alluded to, it's lovely to be talking about Ipswich at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Ipswich, they're flying at the moment. I was reading an article actually this morning, sort of like in preparation to speak to you. And it was an article that featured a BBC Radio Suffolk commentator called, let me get his name right, Brenner Woolley. Is that correct? Yeah. Yes, yeah. And he was sort of chatting about Ipswich and saying that, you know, it's the best he's known Ipswich, sort of the happiest time across the sort of games that he's covered, because he's covered like over 1,000 games for the club. So do you sort of echo the sentiment and sort of share it as well?
Very, very close. The weird thing with Ipswich is if you get fans of a certain age, there's obviously the team in the early 80s that we think will never be touched because they won the UEFA Cup and, you know, finished second in the league, should have won the league, won the FA Cup, all of that good stuff. If you get fans of my age, we had the George Burley era where it was, I think it's 3 playoff defeats in a row. Then we won the playoffs and then we finished 5th in the Premier League. So I think I might predate Brenner. I can remember a happier time, but because we've been down in the doldrums for so long, and I mean, maybe you guys can relate to this with Trillion changing over to Knighthead Capital, you know, how you feel when it's not really going anywhere as opposed to, oh, okay, we're moving in the right direction again now. I can understand what Brenner means from where we've come from. Just this past, since Valentine's Day, basically, Ipswich just haven't stopped winning, and we're now in November and we've gone up a level. It's just madness.
Exactly. You speak about the momentum there, sort of going on from Valentine's Day and just kind of winning from then on. And I suppose momentum in the Championship, it is just so important, isn't it, to get out of the league, because you can see sort of any teams that they string together a certain amount of results, they can really propel up the table. So with Ipswich's run of form, do you sort of see and carry on for the foreseeable future, or do you think there will be wobbles in the road?
I don't know. It's so hard to tell. I mean, you're totally right about momentum. And sometimes with momentum, you never know when it's going to kind of stop, really. I thought Ipswich would have 6 to 8 weeks at the start of the season when other teams are changing managers. And, you know, we've got this ridiculous system where the transfer window doesn't close until we played 5 games. And, you know, like yourselves, even though your best form was, well, the transfer window was open, but you sign in 12 and 13 players to regenerate a squad, and there's loads in and loads out. So I did think they'd have a little advantage right at the start of the season. I couldn't have dreamed it would have lasted this long. Those people, maybe with an agenda to want Ipswich to hit the buffers, are kind of now arguing, oh, well, this went for you and that went for you. And, you know, you never know with those intangibles where winning teams, where things do seem to be kind of going in their favour. You never know what's coming first in that kind of loop of, are they being lucky and then cashing in on it, or are they just a good side who's able to take advantage of when things go their way? But look, you've studied this league. You know about the hierarchy, and we've already got the 3 year 1 parachute teams all in first, third and fourth, haven't we? So we all know how it works, and for Ipswich to be where they are is incredible. And I don't think I have a superlative for if they could stay where they are, put it that way.
You say there about the teams that are in around Ipswich, you know, you've got first place Leicester, and then you've got Leeds in third, and then Southampton in fourth. You know, it's the parachute payment teams or whatever. And obviously they've got more money to spend on their teams than perhaps Ipswich do. But I think one of the things that sort of links those clubs together is the style of football. And I think with all 4 teams, you know, they look to play on the front foot. They look to be expansive. And you see with Birmingham at the moment, it's something that's been spoken about at the club, but I feel like it's going to take a lot of time to implement.
Sam?
I'm not going to say no fear football. I've heard that catchphrase enough, like over the last 3 weeks, that I'm not going to mention it. But yeah, I mean, call it no fear football, call it whatever you want. At the moment, it's not working. So I suppose when Kieran McKenna took charge of Ipswich and obviously he tried to implement this style of football, how long did it take for results to come with the sort of patterns of play?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a bit weird with Ipswich because when you're in League One, I'm not just saying no fear football to wind you up, but the progressive passing stuff works better in the Championship than it does in League One. So the weird thing is what Ipswich had to do is actually find the bits in games where they could fight and, maybe play direct and stand up. It's all very well having your pretty patterns of play, but then you go to Morecambe or Cheltenham or Accrington, love all those clubs, but, it just doesn't work. They just low block you and get the ball down the pitch. And, so for Ipswich, they had to kind of find both ways. And people said to me, oh, it'll work better in the Championship. And I was like, come on, don't be silly. You're going up a level. But it's actually been the case. So something really clicked for McKenna. So he came in the winter of not last season, the season before, and it really clicked. I said Valentine's Day, so probably not 18 months, but sort of just short of that, between a year and 18 months. Obviously, try and be a self-aware football fan. We moan about parachute teams. In League One, that was Ipswich. They could sign 2 £1 million fullbacks, and then in January to sign Nathan Broadhead. So I'm not just saying all of a sudden everything clicked. Yeah, they bought better players than the rest of the league could sign. I'm aware of that. But to your point, it's I think it's only really Bielsa who's just kind of had a pre-season and all of a sudden these average Championship players are playing this total football. Otherwise, it just takes lesser mere managers a long while. And I assume you're alluding to Wayne Rooney when you're asking that question.
Yes. Yeah, I think with obviously really trying to implement the way that he wants the team to play sort of on the front foot, it is going to take time. And I think with the transfer window, we sort of spoke about it, the fact that it's 4 or 5 games into the season that the transfer window does close, but Rooney hasn't had a transfer window yet. And I suppose that's one of the things that we're perhaps looking out for.
But Sam, you have had a good transfer window, so he can surely take advantage of, everyone was excited. I can't remember. I think I might have had Birmingham #1 in my, who's had the most exciting transfer window video. So, he hasn't. Hey, maybe those players were being bought for someone who wasn't John Eustace. We don't know, do we?
That's a whole different conversation, I think, for another day.
Amen.
But I suppose, like with the owners and that, you never really know, do you? But going back to what I was saying, the fact that obviously you get these transfer windows where players look to sort of sign up, I guess, to a managerial strategy and sort of come along and then go, right, this is the way I want to play. With Ipswich and McKenna, sort of with the transfer windows that he had, how many players are there in the team that were from, when he took over to now? Like, how many changes has there been in the team?
Do you know, the funny thing is that even though Paul Cook was a pretty dismal failure, really, at Ipswich, he signed Christian Walton, he signed Sam Morsey, signed Connor Chaplin. So although Christian Walton, we've got this weird thing at Ipswich that's happened this season where we thought we had the most obvious #1 keeper, going, and he got injured at the start of the season, and he's not getting back in the team because the other guy's playing so damn well now. He's
playing so good, isn't he, in goal?
Oh, he's been amazing. We literally, the game stopped after his 5th brilliant save on Saturday for a standing ovation for him. But no, McKenna's done well, and the recruitment's been good. It's been kind of bit by bit. We can't ignore, Wolfenden was already there when he arrived, and like those players I've just mentioned. And not only were they signed by Paul Cook, they came to play for Paul Cook as well, because they'd all played for him. Chaplin at Portsmouth and Morsey at Wigan and Walton at Wigan as well. They'd all played for him before. Look, Broadhead obviously has been superb, and that's a McKenna signing. Brandon Williams, he's on loan from Man United. He, over the last 3-4 games, has been tremendous. Leif Davis is not going to be at Ipswich for very long, because he's just looks like a Premier League fullback, but you enjoy him when he's there, and you hopefully cash in down the line. But I think more than anything, the pattern of play is and knitting them together, and what the manager's done has been has been the main thing, rather than just good acquisitions.
Yeah, and it's all sort of coming together, isn't it? Working on it on the training ground, and then sort of every day those patterns of play that you work on, I guess. And with Birmingham and Ipswich, you sort of look for like the parallels, and you mentioned it there about some of the players that joined Ipswich to play for Paul Cook. We've had something quite similar with Eustace, but the fact that Sanderson's come in, Bielik's come in, Kevin Long's come in, and they're all players that were out of contract or on loan at other clubs last season that have been brought back in, and you kind of look at it now and go, are these players going to be sort of surplus to requirements for Rooney for the way that he wants to play? You just don't know. And,
well, remember, Bielik was with Rooney at Derby, so that's one you can probably
that's a positive
tick off, isn't it? But yeah, it's a perfectly pertinent question, isn't it?
And it's just you don't really know, because there's so many teams now that in the Championship, they have a squad 1 point, and then give it a couple of windows, it's completely different. And I guess that's it with the Championship, isn't it? Everybody's just trying to throw darts at the board, hoping they hit the bullseye, and it's just absolute gamble in the Championship. So with Ipswich this season now, like, would you say the goal is promotion, or would you say sort of it's come as such an overachievement, I guess, to what some fans are thinking at the start of the season? Because I know, like, in your prediction video, you predicted Ipswich around the sort of 12th place mark.
12.
Yeah.
I mean, it's madness. Because before the season, if you'd said, Ben, even when I saw you at the Millwall game, if you'd said, oh, we're going to have a conversation in a few months and you're going to say Ipswich are in the promotion shake-up, I'd have thought it was madness. But I study these leagues, and I study these league tables, and I study the patterns. And what I do know is that if you have 34 points, which is just absurd after 13 games, take Ipswich and my emotional bias towards them out of the equation, you have to have a pretty severe drop-off, cock up, SHIT, the bed, to not finish in the playoffs now. Do you know what I'm saying? So if we take 75 points as a kind of rough guide, it might be unlucky if it was more, it might be less to get into the top 6. Ipswich have got to score 41 points across, how many games have they got left? 33 games, which is basically, they could be, I don't know what that equates to, about 14th, 15th place form for the rest of the season, and they'll get 75 and then finish in the playoffs. So obviously you'd go in there with not very good momentum if you did that. But we've seen teams, I just remember West Brom under Slaven Bilic. Look at their record from about Christmas onwards. They just weren't very good, and they still finished second. So what I'm saying is that regardless of if it's Ipswich, whoever it is, and look at Leicester, for goodness sake, got 39 already. Ipswich mathematically have to be involved in the playoff conversation now due to the sheer amount of points. And even survival form is going to get Ipswich close, a point per game, and 1.5 points per game, and they're probably going to be in the top 5, maybe the top 4. So the basic maths says yes, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I'm sure you were following when QPR were third, looking up at second a couple of years ago, and just nosedived and finished well outside the playoffs. So you don't know.
You see it so many times, don't you? Like where teams sort of in the Championship, they're in like the sort of top 6 picture or whatever for the whole season, and then towards the end they have a little bit of the drop off and then miss out, like Millwall. Like Millwall last season, like they were certain for playoffs, weren't they? Like, they look at the fixtures. They had Blackpool towards the end, who were in that relegation scrap, and another team I can't remember off the top of my head that were in the relegation scrap that were like playing Millwall towards the end of the season. They just completely, bottled it, I guess. But with Ipswich, you're saying like, top 6, you'd think surely.
Well, unless all I'll say is I'm not saying Ipswich are definitely going to get in the top 6, but I'm saying if they don't, that'd be a big drop off from what they've done. They're essentially going to be turning into a bottom or a third quartile team, when really for the most part they've looked minimum a top half team, and the results say they're one of the 2 best in the division at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke so much about Ipswich, but not actually too much about the man responsible, I guess, for the rise of Ipswich at the moment, Kieran McKenna. And his story is just amazing. I was reading that BBC Sport article this morning, the fact that it said, he started off at Loughborough University when his football career finished due to an injury, sort of studying football there, then managed the Tottenham youth team, then went to Man United, assistant under Mourinho and then Solskjaer. and then got his sort of break at Ipswich. And from that point onwards, it's just been like an upwards trajectory. Where would you say sort of he ranks amongst the Ipswich managers in the last, I don't know, like 10, 20 years? Because in that sort of time frame, you've had the sort of more experienced managers, you know, your McCarthy's, your Cooks, your Lamberts, but this sort of new approach to it with the young manager, how would you assess him?
Well, he'd definitely be the most popular out of
Yes.
all of those. It's just a weird club though, Sam, because you've then got Bobby Robson and Alf Ramsey, and it's like, well, no one's ever gonna touch those two in terms of comparison. But he's just done so well. Yes, it's very easy to sit there and say he had the most money in League One. He probably did, but and I'm lucky to speak to football managers, and I've spoken to football managers that faced his team, and they told me, oh, we knew what was coming. We've studied it, and it's so well coached. It's very hard to stop, and they can see things that you or I can't see. So I'll kind of take that as a compliment, and the results just speak for themselves, I guess, don't they? And you get this thing with football fans where on the one hand they want to say how amazing their manager or their player is, but on the other hand make every excuse under the sun why they're never going to leave their club. If he's as good as we think he is, then you know someone's going to be offering him a job higher up than in the Championship very soon, and his reputation's just growing and growing. And you're very much in enjoy it while it lasts mode if he's as good as we imagine he might be.
And Ipswich, you know, they're mixing it with Premier League clubs at the moment. You know, your League Cup run, playing tonight against Fulham, another Premier League team. What are your thoughts ahead of the game tonight?
My thoughts are, I think he's going to make 11 changes because the the game against Rotherham that was postponed due to the weather, which I was at Mansfield. I was already most of the way there and I had to turn around, which was the first time that's ever happened to me with a postponement where I've been most of the way there before I've known it's got postponed. But no, that game, they've agreed for it to be rescheduled. So the Tuesday after we play Birmingham. So
right.
They're obviously not going to run Morsey and Broadhead and, you know, the key guys through 2 consecutive 3-game weeks. So I'd imagine Ipswich will be knocked out tonight. I'll happily come back on and take a grovelling apology if I get that wrong. And that would be... They beat Wolves in the previous round with a lot of changes, but I think Fulham might look at this and think they can really get close to the final here. And I think if I'm a Fulham fan, I'm probably thinking, well, doesn't look like we're going to be in relegation trouble this year. Can you get to a Wembley final? So I shouldn't imagine Ipswich would be in the League Cup much longer. But I'll happily take Liverpool at home in the next round, or Man United, or whoever. Man United's still in there. I don't even know.
No, honestly, I don't know if them teams even care about the League Cup anymore. But
no, I know.
So it sounds like we're getting the full strength Ipswich team on Saturday, which is just what we need on our run of form at the moment. Speaking about Birmingham Ipswich, I guess like in the past or whatever, what are your sort of biggest memories of the fixture in the past?
Wow, what a great question. I remember one of the most boring games I've ever seen. We drew 1-1 the year we got promoted. You had Trevor Francis, rest in peace, okay. Trevor Francis, managing you, and a very big, very powerful, very stoic team. It's some really good battles with Trevor Francis, actually. I remember you winning at Portman Road. Paul Furlong scored a penalty. Obviously, heartbreakingly, I remember losing at Birmingham in one of the run-ins when Ipswich bottled in second place. Who scored? Brian Hughes scored. Your listeners will know these games better than I can remember them. And obviously, the League Cup semi-final, when you got all the way to the final against Liverpool,
we did. You
beat us in the semi-final. So some heartbreaking ones. I think the last time we played, I think I was there. When we got relegated, we were 2-0 up, and Jutkiewicz scored twice in the second half. Don't get me wrong, but it was a robbery that we were 2-0 up. That was one of the worst Championship teams you'll ever see. Our team that got relegated. I think we scored 2 breakaway goals. And then
I was at that game actually.
Yeah, then you battered us for the second half. But yeah, so not a very happy hunting ground, to be honest. I'm not remembering many wins at Birmingham. I know the type of fans that can remember every result ever. I'm not.
Yeah, actually, we won in this day on this day.
Yeah, they'll tell you how much possession Birmingham had as well. But yeah, not a very happy hunting ground to my memory. That's not to say that there haven't been. Do you know what? I think Mick McCarthy's first game was a win at Birmingham, if memory serves. I wasn't at that one. I think would Christoph Berra have even been there? I can't remember, but
yeah, because I've done a bit of research beforehand. I think the last game that Ipswich beat Birmingham was in 2015, so that may link up to when McCarthy was appointed.
That would have been the following season, possibly.
It was 1-0 to Ipswich at Portman Road. I think that's the last time that you guys beat us, because it's actually been quite heavily Birmingham, which is something we're not used to saying when we sort of do these preview videos, and the fact that we've actually only lost one of our last 8 against Ipswich. So you know what's going to happen on Saturday.
I remember there was one at Portman Road, I think. Who was that lad you had that went on to Leicester, the winger?
Damari Gray.
Damari Gray. I remember him playing in that. And I think maybe we had Ainsley Maitland-Niles, actually. I think we might have won 1-0. But hey, this is not very entertaining, me misremembering Ipswich Birmingham games.
History lesson.
Yeah. Well, not a very bloody good one with me, I tell you.
I guess to sort of close it out, we'll have a prediction for the game tonight against Fulham and then the game on Saturday.
So I think 11 changes tonight. I think Fulham will beat Ipswich tonight. Just tell me, is the full stadium open on Saturday?
No, not yet.
It's not.
The Lower Tilton is somewhat open, but in terms of the whole stadium, mystery.
Okay, look, I love going to St Andrews. I love the noise and the we're off to partisan thing, but I'm very pleased it's not open for the first time against us. Look, obviously, Rooney's had not very nice fixtures. I know he's not started well, but you give him his credit, he's not had very nice fixtures. If you promised me a draw at Birmingham and a win at Rotherham on Tuesday, so 4 points from the 2 away games, and then are we away again? I think we might be away again.
Might be
later, isn't it? I can't even remember who we've got on the 11th. But look, context is king. So I would really not want to. No, we're at home to Swansea. So honestly, if we drew at Birmingham with then Rotherham away and Swansea at home to play, I think most people would probably be okay if there's 2 nicer results coming up. But and I don't want to be a smug fan. We're on a good run and you're not, and you've got a new manager and it's not quite working yet. So you're there for the taking. Be nice, wouldn't it? From an Ipswich point of view, not for you guys for 4 straight defeats, but yeah, look, I'd take a point if we can go beat Rotherham, obviously, but yeah, it wants to be minimum a point given what's happening, and that's obviously with full respect to the fact that Birmingham have been in the Championship for ages and had a very good transfer window, etc., etc. Have I straight batted that enough for you Birmingham fans?
Well, what I'd say to that is I'd 100% take a point against you guys.
Oh, okay, there you go.
100% take a point, just so we have a point on the board with Rooney in charge. But thank you so much for your time, Ben. We'll leave a link to Ben's channel and the Blue Monday podcast in the description below. Any final words for the Birmingham fans, Ben?
Oh, yeah, it's proper club. Great noise inside the stadium. Let's hope that you guys have had a lot of rubbish years with Trillian, and it's not all about that I do Birmingham topics and they get good views or whatever. It's just great interaction. So, and we've been there as Ipswich fans, Sam, where the owners don't really care and it's all a bit rubbish, and you don't want to see clubs go through that. So really, really happy. Really hope it works out under Knighthead Capital. Although there is work to be done given this managerial change that they've made, and I hope it works out. But yeah, proper club, but we all know that, don't we?
Yeah, I'm sure the fans will be loving you now in the comment section. Get even more views on your videos.
that wasn't my aim, I promise.
Nah, I'm only joking. But yeah, thank you so much for the chat, Ben. It's been brilliant. And I'm sure sort of next time for the reverse fixture, we'll get you back on, hopefully, to discuss, hopefully, well, Ipswich still up there, and then Birmingham maybe
have they had their nosedive? Have they had their nosedive by that point? Yeah, right.
Maybe not. I don't know. But thank you so much for your time, Ben. And leave a comment down in the description below what you think the score is going to be. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe too, and keep